Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode on the TriStar Gym channel. Today, I'm going to be answering some questions as usual. I want to first thank our sponsors, our channel sponsors. Sponsoring this episode is TimTam.tech, the world's most powerful deep tissue therapy device, the best way to keep your body loose and limber and healthy. Of course, I also want to thank our new sponsor, DefenseTech.co, DefenseTech.co. If you guys are looking for pepper spray, anything protection, pepper spray, batons, hidden cameras, etc. Lots and lots of cool stuff on this website. Check it out, defensetech.co. You can find the website in the description. And also, I want to thank XPN Nutrition. XPN Nutrition certifies their own products. So for those of you who are worried about contamination, etc., for those of you who got busted on drug tests and had contaminated supplements, you won't have that problem with XPN products. Okay, they're tested by a third party, and they guarantee you no contaminated supplements. So if you're looking for a good clean supplement, check out xpn.world. Description link is in the description. And of course, Reebok. I want to thank Reebok. Okay, Reebok clothing for sponsoring this channel as well. All right, guys, I'm gonna start answering the questions. Fire them away. First one here is from y'all finished or y'all done? Is full gi jiu-jitsu a waste of time and effort if I'm training to fight MMA? My camp has a few no-gi classes, but everything is mostly centered around the gi. I'm wondering that when the fight time comes, he's wondering if he's going to be able to rely on those grips, etc. Will it translate to MMA? I see your point. You wrote quite a bit of a long question. That's a common fear. If I do a lot of gi, when the moment comes, am I gonna reach for that lapel? Am I gonna try to use something that's not that doesn't make sense in MMA? Yes, it's a problem. I've seen it. I've definitely seen it. I've rolled with a lot of great black belts, and sometimes we roll with the MMA guys, and sometimes we even get them to do ground and pound training with us. You know, guys who just did gi their entire career, and they're gonna do a little ground and pound with us, and their game falls apart. You know, some of my blue belts do better than a black belt who's done gi for a long time. So yes, it is a problem. Don't do too much gi. I think gi is good if you're gonna be focusing on gi tournaments and no gi tournaments, and you're doing lots of gi and no gi, and you're just in the grappling world. If you're just preparing just for the grappling world, you'll do great. There's a lot of great examples of guys who've done gi and no gi and have won gi and no gi championships. Okay, so it's not really that much of a hindrance. But if you're thinking about MMA, try to find yourself a no-gi place. Now, there are some guys in MMA that do a lot of gi. I won't say no. I won't say that it doesn't exist. I have seen a few guys be successful with the gi. Now, I think there's another issue with the gi. If your trainer who's teaching you in the gi, some coaches are so gi heavy. All their techniques are based around the gi. I don't think that will translate so well in MMA. However, I've been to many, I've trained plenty of gi, and some gi instructors, they don't teach that much of the grips. They really use basic jiu-jitsu that's very effective, but they don't rely so much on the lapel. So not only is it a question of gi, what kind of style of gi is your instructor teaching you? If it's all spider guard and lasso and it's all collar grips, if your entire gi game is based on that, it's not going to go well in MMA. It's really not going to go well. So if your instructor, for instance, if you look at Jean-Jacques Machado, his style, he doesn't use the gi that much. He definitely does use it, but not so much. And I think there's different styles of gi. There are definitely different styles of gi, and some instructors just don't know anything when it comes to no gi. Is your instructor competent in no gi? If he can kick ass in no gi and kick ass in gi, then ask him. How do I marry my jiu-jitsu style to my MMA? I would ask him, because that's a really, really important question. If you're planning on doing MMA, don't waste your time too much with techniques you won't use in MMA. There's too much already. Think about an MMA fighter. He has to learn wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, clinching. I mean, there's just so many things to learn. And now you're going to throw in all these gi moves that you'll never use in the fight. Yeah, learn all these also. It's a ridiculous amount of wasted time. Why would I practice spider guard for hours and hours and hours, get good at a guard I'll never use really in MMA? I'll never use it, maybe for a flash, a small instance. But then you look at guys like Damian Maia. Damian Maia did a lot of gi. He was world champion in the gi. He was world champion outside of no gi as well. However, his jiu-jitsu, stellar, works really well in MMA. But he has such an understanding of jiu-jitsu that he knows what works with the gi and without the gi. The other thing is, you'll also see that his game is, is very one-dimensional. As amazing as he is, His striking wasn't very developed. So if you imagine he took all that time he spent on gi grips that don't translate to MMA, imagine he took all that time and he's put it towards his striking, he would be a better fighter today. Just because he's a very good fighter today doesn't mean he couldn't have been better. You know, there's things you could have done to be better. So what do I like to do in MMA? I like to cut out the excess stuff that we're not taking with us in the fight. So gi grips is definitely one of them. Gi grips is definitely one of them. Now, the things I do like about the gi, I don't want to tear up the gi. I think the gi is good to a certain extent. What I do like about the gi is it helps you with escapes. So if somebody's on my back and I'm wearing a gi, it's a lot harder for me to escape. It's it's not as slippery. And, you know, he's got a better grips. He's got my lapels. He can control me. I need to be able to escape using my hips more thoroughly, more precisely than somebody not wearing a gi. Same thing with armbar. If you have me in a tight armbar, I can't just slip out like in no gi. You know, it's a lot harder to slip out. I need to know how to distribute my weight. I need to know how to counter your grips. And that makes for an advantage. So defensively speaking, it's really good. But offensively speaking, there's just not that much. I think gi is really good for guard pass prevention, learning guard pass prevention, but not. I'm not a big believer in gi. I'm not a really big believer in gi. If you asked me whether I would start somebody with the gi or without the gi, I would say start them without the gi. Start them without the gi, and then we'll put on the gi. And here's why. You know, a lot of people are blowing up right now because they're thinking they've been told the opposite for so long. Start gi and then take it off. I totally disagree with that. I'll tell you why. Because all my grips without the gi, when I do no gi, I start with wrist control. I start with collar tie. I start with double underhooks. I start with one underhook. All those grips still exist in gi. So when I go to gi, so you take a no gi guy, you put him in a gi, all the grips that he's been taught to use exist still, and they're all useful. However, he now has to learn these other 50, 60 grips. So once he learns those grips and the grip break sequences, etc., his game is functional again. Everything is great. However, if you take somebody from the gi and you teach him spider guard and you teach him cross collar grips and you teach him all these gi-based grips, then you take the gi off him, he doesn't know how to grab his opponent. He doesn't even have a clue. Where's the collar? Where's the sleeves? How do I grab this guy? How do I put a lasso on? There's no gi for me to hold on to. Where's the belt? All my grips are gone. So he doesn't have a fundamental understanding of universal grips that will work if my opponent is wearing a gi, not a gi, if he's wearing a jacket, if he's wearing a shirt, if he's wearing a tank top, or whatever. There are some grips that work across the board. Learn those grips. Learn those transitions first. That's the nucleus of your jiu-jitsu, and then add on different weapons. So if you told me, hey, I want to teach somebody to be a great knife fighter, how would you train this man to be a great knife fighter? First, I would teach him boxing. I would teach him boxing because he'll learn how to move, he'll learn how to calculate distance, he'll learn how to jab. Then I'll put a knife in his hand, and I'll tell you what, he's far more dangerous than a guy who learned how to use a knife right away. So if you give Muhammad Ali a knife, in my opinion, he'll be the most dangerous knife guy in the world. Forget all those guys who've been training 30, 50 years, 40 years, 20 years, 10 years with their student. They're never going to be as good as Muhammad Ali wielding a knife. Why? Because Muhammad Ali is going to see you coming a mile away. He reads your telegraph. He could see your body movement. And that knife now is an extra tool. The gi for me is just an extra weapon. It's an extra weapon. If I know how to calculate distance, if I'm great at reading your body language, etc., you don't need to tell me how to use a knife. Stabbing is pretty easy. Okay, so I feel the same way about the gi. The grip sequences are not complicated. They can get a little bit crazy, you know, with the worm guard stuff we got nowadays. But besides the worm guard, new generation of worm guarders, the grips aren't that complicated. So to learn those grips, it's a lot easier than to retrain your instinct of how to grab a guy, your comfort zone. My comfort zone still exists in the gi. You know, I roll gi every so often and I feel fine. And I roll with guys who do lots of jiu-jitsu with the gi and I feel fine. However, when we take off the gi, I feel fine and they don't feel fine. Their game falls apart. So that's my answer to you. I hope it clarifies things. Get that no gi training in if you're going to be an MMA fighter. All right, next question here. Romeo Pagulayan. Best advice to give the smallest guy in the gym. What's the best advice I have for the smallest guy in the gym? In the gym, here's my advice to you: become the most technical. Become the most technical, because technique is all about multiplying the power you have. Okay, so you can't leverage 0 pounds of square inch. You know, if you have 0 pounds of square inch, 0 times a million is still 0, right? So whatever power you have, become an expert at leveraging it. You know, don't try to go hit the weights and try to get stronger. Do that to a certain extent to keep your body healthy. Absolutely. But that's not the ticket. Okay. You need leverage. Become an expert at leverage. There is no other avenue. Don't look for any other avenue. Become an expert of technique. Know everything about technique. Watch my videos. Okay. Watch other videos of really good black belts out there. And learn to be the most technical. Turn your size into an advantage. Okay. You're gonna pay attention to technique. You're gonna care more about technique than others. Now I'll tell you something that it's been my experience. You know, I've been training in the gym for about 16 years every single day. And I'll tell you this, the bigger, stronger guys, you know, the heavyweights, they don't have, I shouldn't say they're not technical. They don't have an understanding of technique like the smaller guys. The bigger guys will do something that's absurd and think it's technical. So for instance, if you have a 250-pound guy in the gym, there's probably just one of those guys in the gym, maybe two, okay, maybe three. Now, if one of them is really dedicated to training, he's going to come to the gym every day, and then you're going to tell him, hey, this is how you get out of mount. And he'll just bench press his opponent off, thinks he did what you did. You know, he thinks he did the hip escape. He thinks he did the elbow escape. He thinks he did the right sequences. But really, he got out because he's so monstrously strong and big. And that's just his size and power. So in his mind, he's seeing himself as really good. Then one day he runs into somebody who's just as big as him, but more years of experience, and his game falls apart completely. Why? Because he doesn't have the power advantage. Now, being the smaller guy, you will very likely not have the power advantage very often. So you got to become obsessed with technique. Your gift is that you will know what works more than a bigger strong guy. So the big strong guys are a bit blind in the gym. You know, it's not due to their fault. I mean, imagine your whole life you've been grappling with little kids. Imagine you lived on a planet and you were the only adult, and you're grappling, and you're the Michael Jordan of grappling. You know, you're just tapping out all these little kids. You're just kicking their ass. You know, they're all blue belts, but they're smaller than you, and you're a blue belt, but you think you understand things so much more than everyone else. That's why I always like to test my jiu-jitsu against bigger, stronger opponents who are trained. Then I know the limits of my jiu-jitsu. When I roll with a guy my size, I don't believe I'm testing the limits of my jiu-jitsu, because the limits of your jiu-jitsu is how big and how skilled of an opponent can you submit, can you control, can you subdue. That's why I'm a big fan of the smaller jiu-jitsu guys like Rafa Mendes. You know, when I see him beat a bigger guy, it blows my mind. Why? Because those guys, like, that's why I like the absolute division. When I see a very skilled black belt who's smaller and beat a very skilled black belt who's bigger, that really blows my mind. Like, for instance, one of my favorite matches of all time is Gary Tonin versus Paul Harris. Now, I thought if there was a judging, I would have gave the match to Gary Tonin. And I'm not sure if there was judging. You guys have to remind me. I can't remember. I think it was considered a draw, right? Nobody got subbed. But if there was a winner, it was Gary Tonin. Now, not because he's smaller, but because I thought he won with aggression and the sequences were in his favor. But that was a match that really blew my mind. And I'll tell you why. One, Paul Harris is way bigger. Gary Tonin looked like a child next to him. And two, Paul Harris is a known steroid user. He's a known steroid user without a doubt. Okay, there's no question in my mind. He's been busted for it before. These are not crazy allegations that I'm saying. The guy's a steroid user. Okay, I've met the guy. I mean, the guy's he's a steroid user. He's technical. He's technical. He knows his jiu-jitsu. He knows his positions. He's a monster. He's very dangerous. And Gary got the better of him. So for me, that was like a David and Goliath match, and it showed to me that it was a difference in skill, not a difference in strength that won the day. So Paul Harris, way more strength, way more size. Gary Tonin, I think if that match had no time limit, you saw Paul Harris getting tired, you saw him getting weakened. Eventually, Gary would have finished him. I think it would have been a great win. Again, it was just 20 minutes. I think Gary, and I've trained with Gary a lot, he can go for hours. I don't think Paul Harris can go for hours. So my advice to you is take inspiration. Go watch all the matches where little guys win, and take inspiration from that, and really, really put your attention on technique as much as you can. Next question here. What takedowns, in your opinion, is the fastest and most reliable when shooting in from a great distance? Any tips on training to get faster and more fluid? This is from Mike Sloan. Mike Sloan, I would tell you that the best takedown from a distance is the single leg. It's easier to get to than the double leg. Excuse me. However, I don't recommend shooting from a distance. Try to get really close to your opponents when you shoot in on them. Shooting from a distance will just get you stuffed. You'll get stuffed for more experienced guys. the idea of shooting from a distance is a bit tricky. I believe in single leg and double leg. I really like the two. Single leg is easier to get into. Double leg is easier to finish, but further away, a little bit further away. All right, 2 more questions here, guys. I'm going to wrap this up real quick here. Remember, I said that I was going to keep it shorter, but more frequent and more elaborate on the answers. This is from Far MMA. Hey, Faraz, I've been injured for a few months now, and I was wondering what I can do while injured that can help me become a better mixed martial artist. How can I prevent injuries as well? I pulled my hip flexor, by the way. I am always busy with school, and I take kids BJJ class and adult BJJ class 5 times a week. Should I cut down on training when I go back? Well, thanks, Faraz, you're a genius. Thank you, Far MMA. Really appreciate it. Here it is. Here's the book on injuries. Now, I don't know the nature of your injury. You're saying you have a hip injury. What caused your hip injury? There could be a number of things. Now, the number one book I've ever read on injury prevention that really changed my training, really took 10 years off my body, is Becoming a Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett. It's a big book. It's 600 pages. Don't be intimidated. However, there's so many pictures in the book. It's a picture book. Okay, so really don't be intimidated. It's an easy read. It's a Mickey Mouse easy read. However, when you read this book, he's a PhD in physiotherapy. Kelly Starrett says, this is the basic way to maintain your body. Now, years ago, I bought his book. I read it thoroughly. I dissected it thoroughly. I know the book by heart. And it changed my body completely. I was suffering from sciatica, severe sciatica. I had pain going down my leg, back pain. Like I'm telling you, I couldn't sleep at night. But I love wrestling. As you know, I'm obsessed with training, wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I have to do it every day. So sometimes I would miss practice and it would really freak me out. You know, like how am I going to get rid of this? It's unbearable. The pain is unbearable. And you know, I saw different experts, you know, guys, different physiotherapists, and it all helped. The pain would come back. The pain would come back. So I'd get treatment. I'd feel better. I'd train. The pain would come back. The pain would come back. The pain, I would say I was in pain for about 2.5 years. Off and on, you know, getting treatment off and on. And then when I read The Supple Leopard, of course I was doing tons of research. When I read The Supple Leopard, he was basically saying, look, you got to do daily maintenance from 2 to 15 minutes a day. And I was thinking to myself, you know, when I go see a therapist, I'm good for a few days, then the pain starts to creep up, or I'm good for a few weeks and I do their exercises. But I got it locked in my mind that I got to do maintenance 2 to 15 minutes a day. So I started doing like 30 to 45 minutes a day. Like I really hit it hard early. And then after today, I just do 2 to 15 minutes a day. Now I'm at that point where my body's really, really healthy, loose, and I do 2 to 15 minutes a day. And that's where I feel like when I'm training right now, I feel like when I was training when I was 20. There's no injuries. I have no injuries. Anything I have is taken care of right away. He's got a book. He tells you here, if you have a tight shoulder, this is what you do. If you got a tight bicep, this is what you do. If you got a tight hamstring, every day you got to take care of any muscular strains you have. So what Kelly Starrett says, he says, look, there's 2 major components. There are other components, but the 2 major ones, okay, the 2 major components you always want to look out for is alignment, number 1, and then muscle tightness. Okay, so I'm slumped in my chair right now. Normally I wouldn't sit like this, okay? You guys can see I'm not super aligned. Whenever you're under stress, whenever you're wrestling or lifting weights, you have to align your body perfectly. If you're not aligning your body perfectly, your joints take a beating instead of your musculature and skeleton, okay? Your skeleton should always be aligned under stress. So, you know, Kelly Starrett says you could slump in a chair as long as you neutralize your back, as long as you neutralize your thoracic spine, as long as you neutralize your neck. So what is neutralizing your neck? You guys are going to have to read the book. It's a little bit complicated. You need the illustrations. The illustrations are really simple to understand. However, anybody who trains, in my opinion, should read Becoming a Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett. The book is A+. Now, after George got his second ACL tear, I sent George to meet Kelly Starrett and train together. And after just 15 minutes of working with Kelly Starrett, George was doing a full squat down to the mat, like a full squat all the way down, which he wasn't able to do prior. And, you know, this guy is really a brilliant human being. So what I suggest is read his book. His book is only daily maintenance. Now, if you have a problem with your hip, a serious problem, go see a physio and get followed. Go see a doctor and get followed. You know, get over that obstacle because I'm sure there's a lot to know about what's going on with your hip. Get expert advice. But to prevent having shoulder problems, neck problems, back problems in the future, you got to do daily maintenance. Now, this is crazy. It's daily maintenance. Every time you train, you need to do some maintenance. Don't just go beat up your body and expect it to recover. You need to do some maintenance. Now, it's 2 to 15 minutes a day that's recommended by Kelly Starrett. If you have a problem area, I recommend 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Get that muscle loose. Get into alignment. He teaches you how to align your body, how to neutralize your spine, how to neutralize your neck, how to neutralize your shoulder, how to neutralize your knees. You know, I used to have pain when I used to walk up the stairs. I used to walk upstairs and have pain. He teaches you how to walk upstairs. He teaches you everything. Excuse me. And now I have zero pain. It's just crazy. And I train a lot. Like, how can I tell you how much I train? I train 2 to 3 times a day, or mostly 2 times a day. And I wrestle long hours. I mean, I wrestle bigger guys, smaller guys. I mean, I'm on the mat working, and I feel great. I feel really, really good. That book did more for me than any other training manual I've ever read. That seriously is the greatest training book I've ever read. And I'll tell you why, because I did a lot of weights, and I did a lot of like a crazy, like, you know, kettle, like, I don't want to say it was bad. It was great stuff. But all the training manuals I read, nobody taught me about form and structure like Kelly Starrett did. So Kelly Starrett, in my opinion, he's the best to teach you how to generate power with your body, because he focuses on the importance of alignment. And that's what jiu-jitsu is. That's what wrestling is. I don't care how much you squat. If you're out of alignment, I will crush you. You're not going to get me down. It's all about it being aligned. So if you got an armbar on me, but you're not aligned, I will squeeze out. You know, yes, power matters, but alignment is power. So I really found a lot of inspiration in that book. I can't recommend it enough. Read it, get through it, get to know the material, and do daily maintenance. If you got a problem area, get a physio guy. For sure, get a physio guy. But your physio guy can't treat you every day. Unless you're George St. Pierre and you got millions of dollars and you got physio guys working on you every day, forget about it. You need to do daily maintenance on yourself. And buy a Tim Tam, man. TimTam.tech. They make the world's best deep tissue. You see, I don't like foam rolling. I did a lot of foam rolling. I did the lacrosse ball. But the problem with that is I didn't want to work out after my workouts. You know, rolling up and down I don't want to say it was annoying. It was work. That's why I love the Tim Tam. I used to use the DMS. The DMS is like this real powerful massager. I don't use DMS anymore because Tim Tam is wireless. It doesn't overheat, and it's more powerful. So I just use that to loosen my muscle. I use it a lot on my legs. Most athletes have tension in their legs, so I use the Tim Tam on my legs. I would say about 3 to 5 times a week. If I have anything tight, if my knee's a little bit something funny, I loosen up the groin muscle, the quad, the abductor, the adductor, the calf, everything. What Kelly Starrett says, it's upstream and downstream. So if your elbow's hurting, you gotta massage, you gotta loosen up all the muscles in your forearm, all the muscles in your bicep and tricep. The joint is always affected by the muscles above it and below it. So it's such a great, phenomenal tool. I think it would have prevented your hip injury in the first place. So again, I can't recommend that book enough. Read it, enjoy it, and follow it to a T. Okay, guys, last question here. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'm out of time. Here we go. This is from Mark H. Guys, by the way, when you send me these emails, you can send them to zahabimailbag@gmail.com. The email address will be in the description. And please let me know where you're from. Okay, so this is from Mark. I'll keep your last name anonymous, of course, but just let me know where you're from. It'll be fun to know where these emails are coming from. This email says, thank you very much for taking the time to read my question. I have a question regarding BJJ training. I often hesitate to apply techniques in competition, which leads me to playing defensive and stalling, even when when I know the attacks for those positions. I'm wondering how one can train to be more assertive and less hesitant in both rolling in the gym and competition. I got a great answer to this. Okay, this is a very common problem. You know all your positions, but when you go on the mat or you go to compete, you don't hit those positions. Now, here's a little secret that when I tell people, I don't think they really believe me. Roll with beginners. That's the best way to get good at firing away. The truth of the matter is, the reason why you're not hitting those moves, the reason why you're not jumping on that armbar, the reason why you're not, it's just because you're still processing so much information that you're just not. It's happening too fast for you. If I slowed down your opponent, you'd catch him in an armbar. The processing speed is everything. So when I roll with a blue belt, I'm like in the Matrix. He's too slow. Whatever you tell him to do, I don't care if there's a Rafa Mendez and Marcelo Garcia there to coach him and tell him every which way if they're coaching a blue belt how to counter me and how, I'm still gonna crush him. I don't care if he gets the world's best technical advice. He's still just a blue belt. He can think at a certain speed. So, when I roll with blue belts, what I do is I don't just use all my arsenal. I try to practice stuff I try to sharpen certain tools. So for instance, if I'm rolling with a blue belt, I'll pass his guard, I'll mount him, and then I'll let him out. And then I'll mount him, pass his guard, mount him. I'll toy with him. I'll practice something. Maybe I'm practicing my kimuras. Maybe I'm practicing a certain guillotine. Maybe I'm practicing just passing his guard over and over again. I will toy with him. Why? Because he's in my world. He's in the matrix with me. Now, this is like, you got to think about it like target practice. You're practicing on combining your moves. Think about this, okay? If you roll with blue belts all week long, how many submissions are you going to score? Well, you're going to score probably a lot more than if you roll with black belts all week long. So let's say you do a week of rolling with blue belts, you're going to score 150 submissions. You roll a week with black belts, you're going to score 5 submissions. Who's getting more practice at submissions? Well, the guy rolling with blue belts. Now, you're working your offense more. Now, when I roll with black belts, sometimes I let them mount me and I practice my escape. When you go to practice, it's time to practice. Don't go to practice to try to win. Some people go to practice and be like, okay, if I don't beat this guy today, if I don't appoint him, if I don't sub him, I'm not gonna feel good. And then you're just your ego. You're just in the you're not practicing anymore. You're fighting. You're going to the gym to fight. I go to the practice to grow, to learn. Sometimes I go into fight just because I want to test my entire game. There is a time to fight and there's a time to practice. So when I roll with black belts, very often when I roll, people don't know this, when I roll, I let the guy go side control immediately. I start in guard, let the guy go in side control. Why? Because if I escape side control, I think this guy has no chance of beating me. So what I do is I go to side control. I let them on top of me in side control if they're black belts sometimes. If I escape side control, in my mind, you're done. Like, there's just no way you could beat me. There's just no way. If you weren't able to mount me and take my back from side control, it's very unlikely you'll be able to do so when I'm playing guard. So when you go to practice. Don't try to fight. Okay, so roll with the blue belts to sharpen your offense. Roll with the higher belts. I don't know what belt you are, to sharpen your defense. And sometimes I let the blue belts take my back and work my defense. What I'm telling you is, don't underestimate the value of working with lower belts. So if you're a blue belt, work a lot with the white belts. Tap them out. It's important that, not in the rough way, not in a mean, aggressive way. It's important that you get a lot of submissions in the week. There you go. How many subs did I get this week? Well, I got 5. Why? Well, I roll with a lot of brown belts and black belts today. Well, that's just going to teach me how to be defensive. That's just going to teach me how to run for my life. And then I go in a tournament and I'm wondering why I'm running for my life. That's all I practice in the gym. Whatever you practice in the gym is what's going to happen on the mats, okay, and in competition day. So in my opinion, some people, I freak out. Like, sometimes I roll with, I train with black belts. I'm like, I don't want to roll with this guy. He's too beginner. Dude, those are the guys you want to roll with. Those are the guys. Why? Because it's good for you to practice your offense. You can combine your moves as long as you're not doing it in a way that's mindless. If you're going there and you're beating up a blue belt, you're like, oh, I'm so strong. Dude, that you just wasted your time. When I play with a blue belt, I'm practicing certain key combos. I'm giving up the strength advantage. Like, I won't force a blue belt. I won't force him on knee on stomach. If I don't get to knee on stomach in a very in a way using lots of finesse, I won't go knee on stomach on a blue belt. I try to finesse the blue belts. I give them the strength advantage. I try to finesse my way into sweeps. I try to finesse my way into mounts. I usually have a goal in mind. I want to guillotine him. I want to practice a certain sequence, and that's what I think is going to make your offense skyrocket. It's going to make your offense skyrocket. Work with lower belts, tap them, sweep them, get your offense in. When you're working with higher belts, you're probably working more defensively. So that's my advice to you. I enjoy rolling with the lower belts just as much as I enjoy rolling with the higher belts. And I think they're super, super important. The first guy actually to talk about this, I remember when Jean-Jacques Machado won the Abu Dhabi, and he was talking about how he trains at every belt. So when he was preparing for ADCC, he would roll with white belts all the way to black belts. Why? Because he was just saying that. That's where I learned it. He was saying in the article that in the white, blue, and purple, he's working more his offense. And then when he gets to the higher belts, he's working his offense, but also a lot more his defense. So he gets the whole spectrum, So that's my answer to you. I hope that helps. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And thank you very much. Make sure to like, share, and comment. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.